Hi, I'm Stephen Vantassel. You're listening to Living the Wildlife, discussing all things related to vertebrate pest control as part of the Pest Geek podcast family. This is the disclaimer for Wildlife Control Consultant and Pest Geek podcast for Living the Wildlife podcast. Always follow national, state, provincial, and local laws when using pesticides and or other control methods to manage pests. Wildlife Control Consultant, LLC, Pest Geek Podcast, Living the Wildlife Podcast, Stephen M. Vantassel, or their or his affiliates are not responsible for followers' use of the information provided here. Hi, everyone. Stephen Vantassel here, Wildlife Control Consultant, bringing you another episode of Living the Wildlife as part of the Pest Geek Podcast family. Glad to have you on board. I've had quite a week. I just got back from Utah, where I was at the Wildlife Damage Management Conference. Yeah, you're like, where did that come from? Why are they way out in Utah? Well, that's the farthest west they've ever been. Typically, they're on the eastern side of the border, but they've moved west of this year because they come every other year, alternating VPCs. So I had an opportunity to speak there about a program that I'm involved in. So glad I got back. Nothing's fast here in Montana, so but thankfully it worked out better than I thought. Utah was certainly beautiful up there in Logan, so I hope your week went well, as did mine. Do take a few moments, if you would, to subscribe to the channel. Make sure you ring the bell, and if you can give us a 5-star review, that would be most appreciated. You can also get us on Rumble. Just go to Wildlife Control Consultant at Rumble, and so on the rumble.com. If you don't want to go to YouTube, which is certainly fine, you can get my podcast there as well. If you need to reach out to me, whether to give me kudos or ask a question, you can reach me at wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com, wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. And yes, even criticisms, you can send that to me as well, because sometimes you have blind spots, you don't see everything, so you can definitely reach out to me there. And join us, of course, on Facebook, as Franklin calls it. Join the revolution on Facebook. You can reach us on Pest Geek Podcast on Facebook and join the family, where you can ask questions and talk about your triumphs and trials there as well. We'll be glad to see you there. So we have a guest today. His name is Tate Morgan. He is the president of Lead Squirrel. I know a lot of you out there like marketing, because marketing is certainly a challenge, especially as more of you are getting competitors coming into the market. So he's with Lead Squirrel, and you can visit his website at leadsquirrel.org, or you can also reach him at animalcontrolmarketing.com. That's well, welcome aboard, Tate. We're really glad to have you with us today.
Stephen, I appreciate you having me on. It's an honor to be here. I've been a fan of the podcast and the show for a long time now, and truthfully, it's been a resource for myself and my team as we explore the world of pest control and wildlife removal. So,
well, I appreciate it. That's very, very kind. So tell us a little bit about your background and what got you into the marketing realm, because talking about competition, there is a ton of competition in the marketing realm. So tell us about your journey.
a ton of competition, absolutely, but it started a long time ago. I've been in the marketing realm for the better part of 10 years. Started on the e-commerce side. I originally went to school for physical therapy and was about 3/4 of the way through the program when I realized I did not like the work.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Wow. That's
and so it took kind of a left turn, but the company that I was working for at the time needed some marketing help, and I said, let me just jump in, help out, see what I can do. And I fell in love with it. Had no idea what I was doing, and got in and cut my teeth in e-commerce at the time. And this was again 10 years ago or so.
Okay.
And moved into e-commerce in the outdoor industry. So I was working with a company that was doing hunting blinds and game feeders and land management. And so I kind of started to see wildlife and conservation efforts and all of how those things kind of played together. And just as an observer, got to see it, because again, I'm in the marketing side. I was doing what most guys in the outdoor industry call the nerd stuff, right? I was doing the website, the SEO, the PPC, and left that business to go into an agency because I really wanted to explore marketing as kind of a broad theme rather than just do it for one particular company. And so in the agency world, got to work with a ton of really cool businesses and was freelancing on the side because the agency was specific to automotive.
Mm,
And so I was freelancing and picking up some clients, and I had worked with a couple of buddies who had started a wildlife removal company. And then they referred me to a couple of buddies who started a pest control company, and kind of a little snowball effect to where all
mm,
of my freelance stuff was pest and wildlife, and all of my day to day at the day job was automotive. Well, in comes 2020, and we all know what happened in 2020. The pandemic
right.
took took the country over, and in the state of Ohio, where I'm located, car dealerships had to close.
Oh my
So
goodness.
yeah, so car dealerships were doing no business for
Wow.
3 straight months. And as you can imagine, me working at an agency specific to automotive, they laid everybody off.
Right.
And
Right.
so it was a challenge, but I'm not the type of person who can sit still. And so I kind of leaned into, and I know what I noticed, right, is that the wildlife and the pest control side, that didn't slow down.
Right.
And
But they were
so
exempt. I think a lot of states made
yeah,
them critical service industries.
yeah. And so those guys, they still needed marketing help. Granted, they were very conscious of cost and very conscious of budget because no one really knew what to expect for the coming year in the,
Right.
and so I leaned into that and just started picking up the phone, making connections, and just seeing who else I could help in that moment. And so early on, our core, kind of the core ethos, while it was still a freelance operation, right, and it was still just me, was I just wanted to help people get through the unknowns of whatever the pandemic brought. And thankfully, like you said, most places made providers exempt. And
Right.
so there wasn't too much unknown, but you still had the market effect of people not having as much money
Right.
because of layoffs and disability and things like that. So there was still a little bit of an impact. And so when I first started into it, it was really just how can I help people survive the next 6 months? And started not only taking on clients, but writing up a lot of material that provided DIY solutions, provided
Mm,
some insight and some context into how I do what I do and how I did it for other businesses. So the friends and families of the people that I knew that were also running pest and wildlife businesses could take that information and do with it what they wanted and what they needed to do. And on the back of that, if they deemed it too much work, or there's a lot of people in the industry who are still in the field, right?
mm,
They're day to day, they're up in attics, they're pulling out raccoons, they're putting up bat exclusions. Those guys don't have time to fiddle around with learning Google ads, learning SEO, building the website, doing all those things. And so if I wanted the DIY resources to be available, but for myself to serve as a resource for people if they wanted to lean into that a little bit. That brought us to 2021, where the company, myself and a business partner, formalized Lead Squirrel into the agency that it is today, which
right.
we've got 8 team members, everyone based in the U.S. except ironically my business partner who's up in Vancouver, Canada.
Okay.
Yeah, so
So you're really North America then.
yeah,
You service in Canada as well then.
yes, yep,
Okay.
yep. So United States and Canada, and it's been a lot of fun. We're a team of 8, so the team's not huge, but we've
Mm,
got content writers, SEO, PPC management, website design, and really the way we like to think about things is we have what we call the 5 core pillars. It's paid search, paid social, organic search, organic social, and strategic communication. All of those things sitting on a foundation, which is your website. So that's the
okay.
way we like to think about things. There's oftentimes, I think, agencies come into a space, and I'm sure you've noticed this in the pest and wildlife space, that agencies pop up and fizzle out after 6 months.
Yeah.
It happens because of overcomplication and under communication.
Mm,
There's a lot of people who come into marketing and they want to tell you about the latest in SEO, and they want to tell you about the 17 different social media platforms and the programmatic ads and OTT, and they want to tell you about all these channels and platforms you can advertise on. Never really give you anything of substance. They just want to tell you they're ticking boxes,
Right.
selling you line items rather than providing you strategy. And one of the things that we thought was most important when we put together our programs, our learning material, the things that we use to sell, is we wanted to frame everything in terms of strategy, and that's where the pillars came from. So when we talk about paid search and paid social, organic search and organic social being some of the pillars, we don't ever want to break into a particular stream when we say those things, because not every business benefits from the same stream of advertising, right?
Right.
We list the paid stuff first, paid search and paid social, because those often provide quick wins. SEO being organic search, what we refer to, and or organic social, so going out and building your brand. Those are long-term strategies, but not necessarily the things you would do if you wanted business in the door tomorrow.
Right.
And so
Right.
we tend to think of things like triage. We do the things that are the most important first, and get those quick wins to get income coming in. And this is the way we structure our packages and stuff too, which we can get into in a little bit. But just contextualizing those pillars, we put the paid pillars first because those are the ones that bring in work. And when you bring in work, it allows you a little breathing room to grow and expand and scale and do those other long-term efforts if it's something you want to pursue. So that's why I think there's such a high uh, disappearance rate for
Mhm.
agencies in the industry,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Do you have a metric that, because wildlife control, as you mentioned, and I
Hmm.
certainly agree with it, doesn't make as much, funding is certainly a challenge in the wildlife control field
Sure.
because it doesn't have the leverage that the
Hmm.
pest control industry has. Do you have an idea of what kind of a metric, what kind of return on investment should someone expect would be reasonable? I mean,
Hmm.
obviously everyone wants 1,000 to 1, right? I mean, don't
Right.
we all? But I mean, in terms of reasonable, uh, what would be that ratio? Is there an industry guideline on that, or is it just totally just completely unknown?
That's an excellent question. Are you familiar with the government program SCORE?
I think I've heard of it, but
So,
I can't say that I'm really that familiar with it. No.
SCORE provides industry consulting to small businesses at absolutely no charge. It's a
Mhm.
division of the Small Business Administration,
Okay.
and it's guys who were in industries and then have retired, and they volunteer their time at SCORE and they consult.
Mm.
And the business consultant that I had worked with through SCORE gave me a bit of insight, which I think is widely understood across just about every industry. But generally speaking, trying to keep your marketing expenses at 10% of your revenue.
Okay.
And I think it's a good metric to go by, and we believe in that so much to the extent that we actually kind of structured our packages around that. So that question actually is an excellent segue into something, or from something we had just mentioned, which is our packages and how the pillars kind of fit into that. But we packaged our service offerings in a way that when you're on our site, each service offering has a recommendation for who the best fit is for that
Hmm.
package, and then the expected outcome and the services that are included with that particular package. Each of those is structured in a way that we call out your revenue figure in relation to the price of that package with that 10% number in mind.
Okay.
Meaning, for example, our intro package is just $499 a month. It's $499 a month, and we say that that's best for solo operators and small teams who are doing less than $100,000 annually. What that does is it gives you a little bit of room to add on marketing efforts. So if there's other things that you need to do, so your business cards, your flyers, your door to door, your pamphlets, those things that we don't necessarily cover, it gives you a little bit of breathing room above what we offer to still keep your marketing as 10% of your revenue numbers. So
Okay.
to answer your question more concisely without the context of our packages, I
Yeah.
think a 10 to 1 is probably a reasonable expectation. Obviously, there's guys that do way more, and if you look at a single particular channel, right, if you narrow down and look at Google ads, you might be getting 12 to 1 on your Google ads, or you might be
Hmm.
getting 7 to 1 on your Facebook ads. But I think 10 to 1 is a good number to shoot for overall.
Yeah. So if someone's so yeah, 'cause that may shock some people of $500 a month. So they should literally be looking at $50,000 return. Is that, do I have my number right? Or is that 5,000? No,
Yeah,
$5,000 return.
so it'd be
So
a $5,000 return, right?
return on that.
So
Okay.
yeah.
And then you have that snowball effect, right? Because over
Hmm.
time, it actually your impact actually grows because paid your paid search, your paid social ultimately starts to convert into some organic benefits, I would assume, over time, right? So that actually, you get that as a follow-up from the paid.
You're
Think of it as
absolutely right.
fertilizer. Yeah, once fertilizer to kind of get things going, and then
Hmm.
it starts growing better on its own. Is that right? Do I
Yeah,
have that right?
you're absolutely right. And one of the key things as far as our pillars goes, we call the website the foundation.
Hmm.
This is maybe this is a hot take, maybe it's not. Maybe I stir up some thoughts in some people when I say this, but
Sure.
absolutely in 2023, even with Google business pages, even with Facebook, even with all these other tools, you have to have a website. You
Right.
have to.
Right.
It's undisputed. And the reason for that is a website provides you a locus of control. In 2007, 2008, there were a lot of businesses who only had MySpace pages. And before that, in 2001 and 2002, there were a lot of businesses that were only on GeoCities.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
And
Okay.
those those platforms up and one day just go away,
Okay,
right?
going away. That's right.
And you would never think that Google could do that or Facebook could do that, but no one ever thought that MySpace would either. And
Yeah.
so, having a website, even if it's just a place for your contact information to live, is so critical because you just never know when the platform you rely on might just decide that it's not going to,
Yeah.
which Google search may be looking at that with what's coming in AI. I mean, that may change the game entirely.
Yeah. And so I guess to put this in concrete terms,
Hmm.
if you're a wildlife control operator or PCO, you're saying you need to own a URL
Hmm.
that you got it, you own it wherever, and then you got to make sure you have a website tied to that URL, and that's your foundation. Now, if did I understand you correctly that your company does do website development?
Correct.
Or okay,
Yep.
so can you talk a little about what type of design do you do? I mean, you're using what's the word I'm looking at? You would WordPress? Are you using, PHP? What type of work do you do there?
Yeah, so just about everything we do is in WordPress. If
Okay.
someone has an existing website, we've got the capabilities to work on the platform that you're already on. So if you're on
Hmm.
Wix or you're on Squarespace or you've got a custom HTML, JavaScript, PHP, CSS website, we can build around those. But generally, everything we like to do is on WordPress.
Okay. All right.
The reason for that is WordPress is about as user friendly as it can get from an SEO standpoint. With the right tools in place, you can really make strides against your competition and just kind of in the context of the internet with a WordPress website. There's a handful of tools, Yoast SEO, all in one SEO. Both of those plugins are excellent. And what
Hmm.
those do is they guide you through and provide kind of a checklist for each page that you create that
Okay.
allows you to create with SEO in mind.
Mhm.
And so when we build websites, we build things that, we build with those tools already. And so as a page is being made, rather than throw a page up, make sure it looks good, and then go back and SEO optimize it later, we're going through and we're copywriting your H1 tags, which are a specific meta tag on a website that Google uses to say this website is about this particular topic.
Mm,
We go through and we make sure that that tag is relevant to whatever your core keyword is. So for pest control operators, that's going to be pest control and the location that you service. Wildlife control operators, it's going to be wildlife removal or animal removal in the service that in the service region you cover. So we're building those things in kind of in real time as things get built out. So that's one of the main reasons we use WordPress. The other one is that, and this is again maybe a hot take, but WordPress is really great for page speed in 2023.
oh, okay.
It used to be really code heavy, and you used to have to worry about how many plugins you had installed, and there's a lot of nuance to getting a WordPress website to be snappy on the
Right,
internet.
right.
As of late, just about every host that you would want to go with, meaning GoDaddy, SiteGround, Kinsta, those providers that give you site hosting for your site, they have a myriad of caching tools built in automatically. And what these do is they just speed up how quickly your site can deliver the code that it needs to run and operate. So WordPress really doesn't have a massive impact on page speed as much as it
Okay.
used to anyway. I mean, there's still some optimizations to be made, but one of the biggest things that Google looks to when ranking your website is your user experience. And if your pages load fast, then your user experience is a lot
Oh,
better.
okay. Yeah, they keep changing the metrics all the time. Is it me, or is it true that it seems like with the Google search, it seems like the ad section is getting longer? I thought I remember back, and maybe I'm showing my age here. I thought back in the day, you may have like the top 3 would be paid, and then the rest would be organic. And it seems like, am I remembering that, or is that list getting longer on the paid side?
You are absolutely right.
Okay, because
So
it's like,
back in the day, many
yeah,
moons ago,
many moons
it,
ago.
it, it used to just be 2 or 3 listings at the top were your paid
Right.
listings.
Yeah.
And there wasn't much more to it than that. And then you'd
Hmm.
get right into organic listings.
Yeah.
Uh, then Google started building in map results, which we've
Okay.
seen and everyone refers to as the map pack, but it hasn't always been a map quote unquote pack, but it would show you some local results underneath your ads. And then Google started showing an ad mixed in with those results. So now you've got 3
Oh,
plus that extra ad result.
okay.
And then Google started incorporating more what I call space stealing extensions, which, side note, if you're running PPC ads, you have to have every single Google ad extension set up. It's not negotiable. You have to have all of them because it maximizes how much space on the page your ad takes up.
Mm.
Uh, but Google started using more and more of those. So now if you've got your site running an ad and you've got 4 what are called site link extensions, and that's where you can link to separate pages on your site right from your ad, you now have an ad and then you've got 4 individual links underneath your
Oh
ad,
my
and
gosh.
you can
Yeah.
have 2 of those per search result. So now you've got 2 of those, so 8 total links plus a map ad. And then as of I know it just keeps getting worse, but
Wow.
you asked the question.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, no.
as of really the last 2 years, Google has rolled out and really prioritized what is referred to as LSA, or local services ads.
Okay.
Uh, this one's a little bit nuanced, especially when we're talking about wildlife removal,
Yeah.
because wildlife removal is not a confirmed category on Google
Right.
yet. And so
Yeah.
you can't run LSA ads for wildlife removal. Pest control, however, has a confirmed category. And so you can
Right.
get those LSAs. So now you have 3 additional ads up above the search result ads.
Gosh. But yeah, and that's a big challenge, I think, for the vertebrate side of things. And that is, you're going up against the big guys or the big ladies who got, significantly larger budgets.
Mm-hmm.
I guess part of the reason why I've noticed that change in Google is that my day job, I'm blocked from clicking ads. In other
Mm-hmm.
words, even if I wanted to click, when I click the ad, the the company won't allow me to go to that page.
Sure.
So I've got to actually scroll down and like, it seems like I'm scrolling farther down. But the challenge I would see for a wildlife control operator, if they don't do, insect control,
Hmm.
is now they're competing against, we do all pests.com versus,
Yep.
and then they're just doing the vertebrate side and they don't have anywhere near the budget. So how do they navigate that? I mean, that's pretty hard.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing to do. One of the recommendations that scares people the most that I make is get your pest control license in your state.
Oh yeah,
Even
preach it, preach it. Yeah.
even if you don't plan to do any insect control at all, get your pest control license in your state and make sure your insurance covers you to do pest
Yes.
control.
Yes.
The reason for this is in order to get your space in that LSA ad, Google has to check your license number against your state.
Oh, no kidding. I did not
Yes.
know that.
So Google will do a
Wow.
background check and they will take your business and they will take the license number you provide and the insurance information you provide, and they'll check against the state's database to see if you're a licensed pest control technician. And they will call your insurance to make sure your insurance covers you to do pest control work. And when that background check is done, you are eligible to run those LSA ads and local service ads. So the reason that's so important, even for wildlife removal, despite it not being a confirmed category, is that if you go on Google and you search wildlife removal near me,
Hmm.
pest control companies are showing up with their LSA ads up along the top.
Right.
Google doesn't consider it a confirmed category, but it still targets those searches with LSA ads. So it's a little counterintuitive. But if you're managing vertebrates, you should want to try to show up in those spaces. Now,
Yeah.
the reason those ads are important up along the top, those LSA ads, is that those, rather than your Google ads, which are cost per click, those LSA ads are cost per lead. So you're only paying when someone actually reaches out to you and touches base and you have a conversation. Uh,
Oh,
yeah, so they reach out through Google and you
okay.
only pay when you actually have the conversation. So rather than on Google ads where you're paying every time someone clicks on your ad, whether they reach out to you or not, you're only paying when you have the conversation with those LSA ads. This brings cost per conversion, meaning how much you're paying to get a customer down so much. I'm
Mm.
talking, I see guys spending $12 to $20 to get a customer with LSA ads versus a standard Google ad. You might pay, 50, 75, $100 per conversion. Now, those are great when they're removal and remediation jobs that you can charge
Yeah.
mid four figures for. That's fantastic. But trapping work isn't profitable on Google.
Yeah, so I think I'm fascinated by that comment because I would also wonder if Google would then take the next step because a lot of pest control companies, a lot, I don't know that for a fact, but
Mhm.
I do think that some pest control companies who have a vertebrate pest category
Mhm.
think that they're automatically allowed to do wildlife control because they have the vertebrate pest category, but they don't understand that they have to get a license. They may have to get a license from their state wildlife agency
Right.
to do wildlife control, like Massachusetts, where I used to live.
Mhm.
Just because you had a pest control license didn't mean you had the permission to do wildlife control.
Right.
Even if you had the vertebrate pest category, because the Department of Wildlife managed wildlife in the state. So
Mhm.
this was something that they had to actually send a letter out to all the PCOs and saying, just because you have this license only allows you to use a pesticide, it doesn't give you permission to control the pest.
Right.
So I
Absolutely.
think a lot of people, so like in Montana, it doesn't matter. We don't have a lot of rules here, but
Mhm.
in other states that have a license, and I think so. I'm just wondering if Google is ever going to get to the place where they don't now when people are doing wildlife control, are they going to then do the next step and check against the state license registry to see if this company has been? I wish they would do that with pesticides because there's still a lot of pesticides being sold and sent to states where it's illegal to use that
Yeah.
pesticide.
Yeah.
Well,
I,
that's fascinating.
I would have to assume at some point in time it gets there.
Yeah.
The reason Google has been so slow moving on bringing bringing wildlife removal into their confirmed categories is they've had an issue with uniformity from state to state.
Yeah,
Just as you're,
it is.
yeah,
It's difficult to be sure because it's not nat because it truly is state to state, and so
right,
it's very hard, and I can see that would be certainly problematic. Plus, it's small.
yeah,
We're only, trophic levels. There's going to be a lot more insects than there are vertebrates. And so you have
right.
smaller and smaller companies coming into the top. Well, that's fascinating. So let's talk some more, if we could, about the $4.99 a month. What would entail in that? Would that entail you building a website or modifying a website? What kind of services would come at that base
Yeah,
level for
that's a
somebody?
that's a great question. So the $4.99 a month includes what we refer to as a templated 5-page website. So it's a website built with a framework that we are confident provides results for you.
Mhm.
Um, Saying templated tends to scare people a little bit because they think they're getting the exact same website as somebody else. That's
Right.
never the case. We have photographers on staff. We've got a subscription to Adobe stock, and we have tons and tons of imagery that we never have to duplicate. We never write the same sentence twice across two different websites, and
Sure,
so
sure.
we make sure that everybody is differentiated. But that generally includes a home page, a locations page, a services page, an about us page, and a contact page. The reason those are the 5 core pages that we have to have is, first off, your homepage is important because that's how you push people into your sales process.
Mhm.
Let people come onto your homepage, see everything they need to know to make a decision in one shot, because most people only get through one page of a website. So you want your homepage to be that.
Right.
Uh, Locations page is important because that signals to Google the locations that you're willing to serve and travel to. Now,
Right.
you're going
Right.
to say those things in your Google business profile anyway, but Google business profile also takes signals from your website to decide where to list you, where to allow you to rank. So having a locations page is important. Having a services page is also is critical because you've got to be able to list out everything you do and give your potential customers a spot to build the trust in the fact that you have the knowledge to serve them properly. But on the nerdy side of things as well, a services page is really important for SEO. You want to show up for wildlife removal, of course, but if someone goes on and searches raccoon removal or how to get squirrels out of my attic,
Mhm.
you have to have a page somewhere on your website that mentions raccoons and squirrels as core services. That way, when someone searches, you're improving the odds that you show up. The About Us page. I'm sorry, were you going to ask
No,
a
yeah, I
question?
was going to ask a question, but I don't want to stop your flow.
Sure.
So go to the About Us site because I'll remember what I was going to ask you.
Yeah. The About Us page is the second most viewed page on any website behind the home page. The About
Really?
Us page, yep, is a critical place to build trust. You should have an About Us page that shows some photos of you out on the job. If you've got a wrapped vehicle, take a
Hmm.
picture of your vehicle out in front of a local home or business that you're working with. Out in front of a local landmark especially is great. That way you provide some visual context for the people who are coming onto your website. And give a little history, just something that allows people to recognize this is a real company in my neighborhood. I want to see the smiling faces that are going to be coming to my house and into my home, and I want to be able to trust the people that I'm inviting in to service my house.
Well, that's the end of part one of our interview with Tate Morgan, president of Lead Squirrel. So stay tuned for next week. You'll get to part two when he talks about his favorite kind of guerrilla marketing type tip that he tells people involved in the service industry world and what they can do to help improve their connection and trust with the community to help them increase sales. And so stay tuned and come the next week for that particular portion of our podcast. You've been watching Living the Wildlife as part of the Pest Geek podcast family. I'm Stephen Vantassel. You can reach out to me at wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com, wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. Would love to hear from you. You can drop me a line at wildlife control consultant at gmail.com. Comments, criticisms, suggestions for new shows. Would love to hear from you. Do take a few moments, if you would, to subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, and also if you can give us a 5-star review, that would be most appreciated. Well, if you don't like YouTube, you can also download the podcast via Rumble. Again, this is Living the Wildlife. Why do we call it Living the Wildlife? Because we want you to live the wildlife, not be the wildlife. Take care, everybody.